Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think. Jamil and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Here's Johnny.
Here's Johnny Palmer,
you know.
my brewing brother.
That's me.
All right.
Although Johnny is not the appellation I've usually gone with, but, you know, it works for nostalgia's sake.
Yes. And we're here for another fantastic series of shows. We're going to actually be dealing with high gravity brewing. We're gonna break it down.
We're going to be brewing strong.
We're going to be brewing strong. Absolutely. Well, and
the only one that saw that pun.
You know, I find it interesting. I was thinking about this earlier today. We have a different type of listener for Brew Strong than we do for Can You Brew It, and than we do for like the Sunday session. Yeah, it's a different kind of listener. There's some overlap, sure.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was pretty much the same people, you know, listening to all of them. But that's not really the case. I think on Brew Strong, we've got some of the more intelligent listeners and the ones who are interested in learning more about brewing. And you'd think, well, you know, if you have to learn more, well, maybe you're not that intelligent. Maybe you don't know that much about brewing. Not true.
No. Oh, yeah, because I've talked to several pro brewers that say they listen to the show, so that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing. You know, the more you learn, the more you realize there's a whole lot more to learn. It's like if you talk to Chris White about yeast, you know, he'll readily admit he doesn't know everything there is to know about yeast. You know, why is that? Chris, you don't know everything there is about yeast? He says, well, no, there's a lot to know about yeast. And there's a lot more to still be discovered about yeast and in understanding it, you know, versus... And, you know, for Can You Brew It, you know, great bunch of listeners. But again, there's a subset there that I think they just listen because they just want to get a recipe. And they think they already know everything about brewing. And they got a bit of a tood, you know, some of these guys. And I think, you know, it's a real shame because there's a lot to learn from Can You Brew It.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I've noticed that at NHC too. I mean, you know, some years, whenever I go to NHC, you know, you meet all kinds of people from all over the country, and I remember being really surprised to find out that there's a whole bunch of people that go to the conference that don't go to the technical talks that, you know, that they have. And I mean, that's what I'm there for practically. I'm going to find out, you know, what other people are doing, hear the latest and greatest on different topics.
Right.
And you know, a lot of the guys, you know, they have different reasons. You know, they're just there to socialize, or they don't think that the topic, you know, that's being offered is very interesting. But then I'll see them a couple years later, and they've started going to the topics. And it's, you know, I think a lot of it is, as you say, you've got to learn enough to realize what it is you don't know and what you want to find out. And so, you know, the more, you know, as my history teacher used to say, you know, knowledge makes things interesting. So, you know, the more you learn about brewing, the more you realize there is to know about it, and the more interesting it becomes.
Well, I don't know if I told this story before, but I was in New Orleans for a conference for work, and the nearest beer bar was right across the street. Was the new Gordon Biersch that had opened up there. So I went in there, I was trying the beers, and at one point I see a bunch of guys that kind of look like me wander in wearing various beer shirts, and all gather around at the table, and it was right next to me, and I said, "Hey, you guys wouldn't have to be like homebrewers or something?" And they're like, "Yeah." So I thought, "Oh, that's cool." Started chatting a little bit, and I said, I was talking to this one guy. I said, "Do you participate in any like the online forums or anything like that?" And and he says, "No." And I said, "Oh, you don't?" He goes, No. He goes, "I've been brewing 15, 20 years." He says, "I know everything there is to be about brewing. Nobody can tell me anything that I don't already know about brewing." He goes, "That's a waste of my time." Because I know everything there is about brewing. He was serious.
Really? Oh, that's weird.
I was just like, I guess there's nothing really.
Yeah, what do you even say to that,
about.
right?
Yeah. It's like, I was just stunned. I'm thinking, oh my God, and I look at all my brewing idols, and a lot of these people that we've had on as guests on this show, and yourself, John. I look up to you guys and say, these guys know a lot about brewing, but I guarantee you they don't know everything about brewing, and they'll readily admit they don't know everything about brewing. There's so much more to learn.
Yeah, I think Dr. Charlie Bamforth, who's written books and studied the science of this, would tell you, I learn every day.
Yeah, he's a prime example. He knows so much.
Yeah,
that he knows that there's still a lot to learn.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of sad that I think there's some people out there that feel like, oh no, there's nothing really to learn. I can't really improve my beer. My beer is perfect. And I'm just gonna do it. And I think those people who tend to think that way, I don't think they can take those can you brew it recipes and brew clones. I don't think they can.
Right.
I think they're gonna probably be people say, well, this isn't really the recipe because mine didn't turn out anything like
right. Well, they're right example. In that they know how to make beer. The guy he knows how to make beer. Period. Sure. But that's it. He can make beer.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
And I guess if you enjoy it, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think it's disappointing when there's so much to learn and so many opportunities, and the Brewing Network providing a lot of good opportunities for people to learn. It's just a shame. So
yeah.
Well, and one guy that is out there and has that same attitude, knows a lot, but is interested in learning more all the time. Our great sponsor, John Blickman Engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of those guys where he asks as many questions, probably more questions than he gives out answers. He's trying to improve his products and learn more about brewing, and that's a great way to be, I think.
Yeah. These are the guys that always have that spark of interest. Always looking towards what don't I know? What can I learn today?
Yeah.
And, it definitely makes a difference in his products.
Right. Well, great products. You go to BlickmanEngineering.com, Blickman with 2 N's at the end there, and check out their products. You can ask for them at your local homebrew shop. They sell all over the place, and it's great stuff. I got myself a whole Blickman setup, and I haven't quite put it all together yet. Time is tight lately, but boy, I've been drooling over all the pieces and parts at this point. And
it's a sweet setup. Really.
Oh yeah, and one of the cool things about it, if you're brewing high gravity beers, and you need to have a bigger mash tun, right? To get more grain in there. Well, you can easily swap out different size kettles on that system, on the top tier system.
Yeah.
And it makes it very easy to go from, like, I like to make 5 gallons of a mild, and I like to make 10 gallons of a barley wine. And people are like, well, people tend to do it the reverse all the time. It's like, well, why? Well, because I like to age the barley wine. The mild, I like to drink quickly, and so I don't want it sitting around a long time.
Right.
So I tend to, want to do the opposite. I want to go from a real small mash tun to a real big one, and not change anything else, not change my kettle size or anything like that. So that top tier system that I have allows me to do that. So that's going to be great to finally get that set up and maybe knock out some of these Can You Brew It beers. All right, so we are going to get into high gravity brewing. So it was a request that came in while we were doing our Package Gasm shows, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah, somebody had. If you're listening live, you can go to the Brewing Network site, and there is a chat now button. You click on that, you type in anything as a screen name. There's no password needed or anything, and you get right in. And Justin's moderating the chat. And there's other people in there that are listening as well, and you can actually ask questions, provide feedback to the show live while it's happening. We tend not to take phone calls because we don't have somebody to screen them, and we, God knows, it might be one of those Can You Brew It listeners that's coming over and going to mess things up. So
people would think that Justin would screen calls for us, but he really is committed to that board, and he's busy there.
Committed to doing nothing. Yeah. Thank you, Palmer, for putting it that way.
Yeah, he pretty much gets up in the middle. As soon as we're deep into our discussion, he gets up. He leaves.
It's always fun to see him lunge back towards the microphone when we actually mention his name.
Yeah. In the meantime, I'm doing laundry. Just out in the other room.
Timer went off. Oh, time for a break.
Gotta go. Good luck, gents.
All right. Anyway, so somebody said, hey, they had a question about high gravity brewing. I thought, that's an excellent topic for us to break down. So we're gonna have a high gravity series.
All right.
Shows. I've run out of sexual sounding things.
Just leave it as it is. Wow, we actually have to be serious for this one.
High gravity series.
Well, the email itself was a little, amusing because, he was wondering what the change in weight of the brew pot would be under, different gravity situations. Mm-hmm. 2G, 3G, and so on. But
is it going to be 3 shows? It could be a high gravitoire. Something if you're looking for another gasm series.
I think we'll have to save that. I don't know. We may go 4 shows. Who knows?
Yeah. All right.
So it's a high gravity series.
Okay.
Yeah. Get your mind out of the gutter. All right. And let's take a short break. And when we come back, we will get into high gravity brewing. Back after this.
Right. Brew smart.
Brew Strong. This is Brew Strong.
The cutting-edge equipment from Blickman Engineering is designed by brewers to make your brew day shorter, more enjoyable, and to give you a sense of pride in your equipment. At Blickman, they know what makes brewing a pain and build gear that makes it fun. Like the intuitive beer gun, a completely different approach to filling bottles. The Therminator Wort Chiller, a new take on a plate chiller that's sized for flow, performance, and the high groundwater temps homebrewers face every day. The Brewmometer, a brilliant weldless thermometer design with brewing parameters right on the dial. The Autosparge, ultimate simplicity for preventing an overflow or running your mash tun dry. And much more, like the modular top-tier brewing stand, conical fermenters, and their Boilermaker brew pots. With more cutting-edge equipment coming soon, keep up with the latest from Blickman at blickmanengineering.com and stay on the cutting edge.
Downtown Joe's, located in the historic Oberon building in beautiful downtown Napa, California, offers an award-winning brew pub experience from 8:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. every day. For 15 years at the corner of 2nd and Main, Downtown Joe's has been voted Best Night Spot 7 times and Best Brew Pub for the last 4 years in a row. Brewmaster Colin Kaminsky's handcrafted ales, like his Tail Wagon Amber Ale and Catherine the Great Imperial Stout, are the perfect accent to riverside dining, live music, and a relaxing outdoor patio. Don't miss the Beer of the Month, special rotating taps, and happy hour all day Mondays. Visit downtownjoes.com to make reservations, peruse their extensive calendar of events, or just read more about their fantastic beers. Come enjoy the fine beer, food, and music. Downtown Joe's, the award-winning brew pub where you'll feel at home.
And now, Northern Brewer brings you another installment of The Time Brewers. 3 brewers, 3 different eras, all caught in the same fermento-chronological vortex, traveling through time, righting brewing wrongs, and bringing beery wisdom to where and whenever it may be needed. Journey now with Dr. Jean de Klerk.
Greetings, listeners.
20th century Belgian super brewing scientist.
Please, the yeast and the enzymes do the hard work. I am merely a facilitator.
Icebach.
What?
21st century Norwegian American homebrewer rapper from St. Paul.
Listen. I bust the attenuation maxims and my Yakima magnums make my lager so smooth it's like a laxative. My spit got that static power after I mash for an hour. I got naked ladies in my brew room all covered in hot flowers. I swing a propagation flask like a 5-liter dick. Get your nasty mid-drinking group on ass back to 1026, fool.
And Brother Abelard.
Art thou a witch? Begone!
12th century English monk and perpetuator of brewing superstition.
My holy rod of divine babbling shall maketh any ale to froth by the grace of heaven, and a modicum of bog myrtle hurts not either.
Brought to you by Northern Brewer, your one-stop homebrew supplier throughout the entire fermento chronosphere. The widest selection of quality malt, hops, yeast, and equipment with $7.99 flat rate shipping. Tune in next time for more Time Brewers!
Hilo, what's it feel like?
Take awesome and multiply it by 2.
Yeah!
Spraying live beer radio all over your face.
Can't get any better than this, baby.
It's the Brewing Network.
Back to the 2 guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're talking high gravity brewing. So, like we usually do, let's kind of kick off with a definition of high gravity brewing, and you know, I get a lot of people asking me, well, how high gravity is high gravity?
Yeah,
is there really a cutoff there, John, or you know, like a general guideline, or?
Yeah, I think there's various guidelines from different contexts, different people. Mm-hmm. In terms of the regular hop utilization formulas, the guideline is 1050. Anything higher than 1050 is considered high gravity. If you look towards a lot of current beer styles, maybe more like 1055. Things above 1055 or 1060 is considered high gravity. Mm-hmm. These days you look at commercial craft beers and microbrews, and you'll see pale ales. In other words, broadly a session beer up to 1055, 1057. Mm-hmm. Probably 1055 to 1060 and over. That's pretty much where we're talking about high gravity, and then certainly when you're talking anything 1070 and above.
Right. Well, and sometimes I'll get email questions from people, and they're like, I'm brewing a high gravity beer, and some of them are in the kind of 1080 range, and I'm thinking, high gravity, and some of them they're like, my starting gravity is 1.150. I'm like, holy smokes, or 1.2. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Now, that's some super high gravity. That's like in a whole nother world.
Yeah. Yeah, really, you get over to 1.0, 1.10, and then that really adds another twist to the equation. I mean, you've got to take extra steps beyond what we're going to initially talk about today and over the next couple of shows. Mm-hmm. Those are definitely high stress situations.
So, my thought is, if you're going to make a big beer, probably one of the very fundamental things that you need to think about before you, heat up any water is, fermentability.
Yep.
How is fermentability important in making high gravity beers?
It keeps. I mean, the difference between a good beer and a poor beer when you're talking high gravity is the amount of attenuation. Is it cloying or not? Or is it a satisfying beer? Mm-hmm. And for me, I think there's everybody. A lot of people are familiar with IPAs, West Coast IPAs, and double IPAs or imperial IPAs. You look at a single IPA like, say, Stone IPA or Goose Island IPA. There's lots of good examples of a good standard IPA. You're talking 1050 to 1060 OG. Then you talk about maybe a West Coast IPA where you're talking more like 1070 on that IPA, and that would generally be kind of a more all malt version. It's a strong beer, usually all malt, and when homebrewers are doing those, very often you can end up with a beer that has so much body to it that it's really one beer that you drink over an hour. I mean, it's you can't quaff that beer. It's just too big a beer because it isn't the malt body and so on doesn't allow it to attenuate very well. Mm-hmm. Well, then you go to a double IPA like Pliny the Elder or Avery Maharaja or several different examples. Those are a much more drinkable beer. Certainly, knock your socks off after a while, but they're a lot easier to drink a lot of because the attenuation is much lower, and they've reduced the final gravity of that beer, so it isn't so heavy.
Right, and, like Pliny the Elder starting gravities like in the 1070s, and it finishes in the single digits, like 1010, 10.9, down around in there, and that dryness, that full attenuation and not having that heavy body makes it far more drinkable.
Yeah, I find double IPAs to be a lot more drinkable for me than I'll say a West Coast single IPA.
Mm-hmm. Because of the better attenuation, or
right? Yeah, and very often these brewers of double IPAs recognize that they're brewing a big beer, and they take that into account. They'll increase the fermentability of that wort by either adding simple sugars or changing their mash profile. But they know they're going to drive the fermentability up and the final attenuation down to keep that a more easy drinking beer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and so I did a interview with Matt Brynolfson earlier today for one of my favorite IPAs, which is Union Jack.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And he was saying on that they're trying to ferment. They do a mash rest at 145 degrees Fahrenheit for an hour, trying to make it as fermentable as possible, so it'll finish out as dry as possible. Mm-hmm. And he said that one of his suggestions for listeners trying to clone that beer was, if your situation, your equipment ends up with a beer that just won't attenuate quite enough, don't be afraid to swap out some base malt for some simple sugars to make the wort more fermentable to get that dry finish, because that dry finish is important in replicating that beer.
Does Union Jack use simple sugars, do you know?
No, he doesn't.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Yeah, it's all malt.
And I'm driven
actually
by the mash.
Drinking some right now. Justin brought back from the SoCal Brewfest. So I'm enjoying some luscious Union Jack. So it does have, some body to it and, some malt character to it that, it is a fuller, richer beer than, kind of the base of something like Pliny, which is, even drier.
Right. But there again, there's a difference between Union Jack and a lot of other strong IPAs you can get, and Union Jack is a much more drinkable beer because of that fermentability is high.
Mm-hmm. Well, and now, so we're talking about fermentability, but isn't the common wisdom amongst homebrewers for a long time, if you've got sweetness, I just throw in more hops and balance it with more bitterness. I mean, why can't you just do that?
Yeah, because that really that attempts to cover up the problem. It doesn't solve the problem. Mm-hmm. And the problem we're trying to solve is, keeping a high gravity beer very drinkable. Mm-hmm. Everybody. It's easy to make a high gravity beer, and Lord, I've had these at fests and and homebrew club meetings where generally a fairly new brewer maybe his third or fifth batch will go for the barley wine he's always dreamed of, and it's this very rich, very sweet, very heavy beer. It may taste all right, but a little 4 ounces or so will fill you up. It's not something you can drink a lot of. Where if you address that recipe by saying I'm going to brew something that has a starting gravity of say 1090 or 10100, but I'm going to add some simple sugars to that recipe, and I'm going to drive the final attenuation, keep it in the low teens, instead of 1020, it becomes a lot easier beer to drink. And drink more than just a little of.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, and, one of the concerns a lot of brewers have is like, well, I don't want to add, table sugar to my beer because it's going to make it taste cidery and thin.
Yeah. Well, that is a legitimate concern, but you got to know how to handle it. Cidery beer is a result of excess acetaldehyde, acetyl alcohol that's generated by the yeast, and that is due to stressed yeast. So if you don't get, it goes back to what we've said about good, healthy yeast and a good fermentation. Mm-hmm. If you have enough yeast and you don't subject the yeast to just a simple sugar environment, they will ferment that beer the right way, and you won't end up with those cidery flavors.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think a lot of that goes back to the kit and kilo brewing, where you were adding a kit and a kilo of sugar, and 60% of your 66% of your fermentables were coming from table sugar, and then fermented hot, and you get the solventy, acetaldehyde, cidery beer.
Yeah.
And it'd be thin because there isn't a lot of residual sugars, unfermentable sugars in that kind of case. Yeah. And that's the classic thing. And I think that carried over for a long, long time to, a hatred of using sugar. But sugar's a great tool in adjusting fermentability and of keeping a beer from being overly heavy with too much unfermentable malt character.
Yeah. Jamil, like even in some of the some of the Belgian styles. I mean, what are we talking there? Maximum 20-30% simple sugars in those styles versus a kit and kilo, where, as you say, you're talking 40 to 60% simple sugars. And that kind of tips the balance, towards as far as yeast health and fermentation health.
Yeah.
So, and unless you really know how to ferment, drive fermentation with that much simple sugar, it can end up cidery. So, I mean, the more we talk about the mechanics of fermentation and try to help educate everybody on what a good fermentation is, we really do move away from the cidery faults and the fusel alcohol faults that you can get with hybrid gravity brewing.
Right. Well, and let's talk kit and kilo. Reminds me, I'm going to be in Melbourne, Australia for the Beer and Brewer Expo, May 19th through the 22nd. I'll be in town there. So if you're around,
give a big good day for everybody for me.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about the basics of brewing and whatever else people want me to talk about, and some presentations during the expo, and then kind of meeting up with some locals down there. It'll be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Not that they're all kit and kilo brewers by any means.
Right. But that's kind of where the phrase comes from, is or at least where I've heard the phrase kit and kilo. So, and I think Cooper's was one of the first to start making brewing kits, right?
That's right.
So they are going to be a sponsor, and we're going to have a lot of fun with that. All right, let's take a short break, and when we come back, we can get into determining if the extract you're using is going to need some sort of adjustment with simple sugar. Back after this.
Keep your carboy cap on. This is Brew Strong. We'll be right back.
Do you support the Brewing Network? Do you brew your own? Are you looking for an economical, fun, and legal way to do both? Subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine and do just that. All year long, Brew Your Own will surprise you, entertain you, and educate you with articles on beer and brewing from authors like the Brewing Network's very own Jamil and John Palmer. Each issue is a full pint of brewing techniques, homebrew stories, tips and photos, projects to make yourself, and recipes for the avid home brewer. Get your tough questions answered by Mr. Wizard, and polish your style accuracy with Jamil. A portion of every subscription goes to the Brewing Network, so subscribe today at byo.com/Brewing Network, or just click the BYO logo on the Brewing Network homepage and support a fantastic hobby and your favorite broadcaster. Brew Your Own, the how-to homebrew beer magazine.
Hi, this is Push from the Brewing Network, and I want to tell you about the Brewmaster's Warehouse and how you can get 10% off your next order. I'm a pretty techie guy, but I've never seen an online store like this. It's awesome. Go to brewmasterswarehouse.com and click on Brew Builder. You can whip up a custom recipe so easily even Sven could do it. Seriously, it's slick. You can share your recipe with your own logo and notes to the Brewmaster's database if you want, and the best part, it keeps a running tally of the beer you're building while you're doing it. Then, bam, click Buy Recipe, and your cart is filled and ready to go with helpful suggestions in case you forgot something. This thing is amazing. Brewmaster's Warehouse is run the way a home brewer would do it, with great service, fast turnaround, and $6.99 flat rate shipping. Brewmaster's Warehouse and the Brew Builder blew me away. Check it out today at brewmasterswarehouse.com. I'm serious. And don't forget to put BNARMY in the discount code box for 10% off your order. Check out brewmasterswarehouse.com. Cheers. Hey, Push, the new brewery's looking good.
Thanks, Finn. Piece by piece.
Well, let's fire her up. Whoa! Is that a new kettle?
Yeah, just got it brand new, but paid half price.
What? And that blade scale?
40% off.
The new tap handle?
$5 instead of $13. Got a new regulator for the brew stand, too, but $5 instead of $25.
Dude, where are you stealing all this stuff from?
Where else? The More Beer deal of the day.
Announcing the Beer, and More Beer deal of the day. Every day, a new fantastic deal from big items to small that will blow you away. Boil kettles, carboy carriers, sterile siphon starters, digital timers. Watch morebeer.com every day for a new deal, and you just might find the item you've been waiting for at a price you cannot believe. Hurry, because stock is limited on most items.
And that sweet Guinness cap, let me guess.
The More Beer deal of the day.
Yeah, I knew it. Come on, let's brew something. Find the More Beer deal of the day at morebeer.com. Celebrity voices impersonated.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew Strong.
All right, we're talking high-gravity brewing. And we've just kind of covered the subject of fermentability and how important it is in high-gravity brewing. And we'll be coming back to that. Fermentability is going to play a role on all the rest of this series of shows. You know, we're going to talk about fermentability and how it affects fermentation, how it affects production of your wort and all that. So it's a key theme, and that's why we covered that first. All right, so. John, now, let's say I'm an extract brewer.
You're an extract brewer.
All right. Well, thank you. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
If I'm starting with extract and I've got a choice of a bunch of different extracts for my brewing, how do I make a choice when it comes to high gravity brewing for various extracts? I mean,
well, key is freshness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's two kinds, of course, liquid and dry. Liquid extract, when you can get it very fresh, is very good to use. What you want to be aware, what you want to try to do is make sure it's as fresh as possible, because the liquid form does tend to stale faster if it's not kept well. Dry malt extract, on the hand, ages very slowly because it doesn't have the water content that allows chemical redox reactions to occur. So if you are mainly a all grain brewer that has decided on a whim to brew a high gravity beer, keeping a stash of dry malt extract in the closet or in the back of the fridge is a very easy way to generate this high gravity wort with your current equipment. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, if you plan this out a bit, then you can say, okay, I'm going to brew a high gravity beer, and you can head off to your local homebrew shop and get several pounds or several gallons of high quality, very fresh liquid malt extract. Mm-hmm. So freshness is the key there. The color of the extract is another important aspect, because when you're brewing these high gravity beers, and this is something I think we'll really talk more about in probably the next show when we talk about when we focus more on the boil and how to handle the boil in a high gravity beer, is you want to control darkening. You want to control the kinds of flavors you're generating. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to brew a pale high gravity beer, you're going to want to start with a very fresh liquid malt extract or a very pale dry malt extract to reduce the amount of color that you're going to be introducing to that beer. An old liquid malt extract, especially if it's stored warm, is probably darkened 5-10 degrees SRM or up to 20 EBC.
Right, because oxidation adds darkens things and adds that component. Let's think about it like rust, turning iron rusty and that orange color.
Good comparison, yeah. And a darker extract is going to have a different flavor in your beer than the undarkened extract.
Mm-hmm. Well, and those beer kits that are like some stout kit or something like that, or even amber ale kit, it's designed to make generally an average gravity beer and designed to be thinned out. The concentrations of colors and flavors and bittering and all that tends to be too much for a high gravity beer. You can end up with a kind of overwhelming high gravity beer.
Yeah, unless let's say you're heading for an imperial, stout.
Mm-hmm. Still, probably better to start with a real pale extract and a fermentable one, and control it from there with your specialty grains, huh?
Right, with your own choice of specialty grains rather than someone else's.
Well, and how do you and the right amounts? I mean, even if they've got to what you might think, you got to be careful about the amounts. How do you determine the fermentability of let's say I have an option of several malt extracts, dry, liquid. How do I determine which one is fermentable? Do I just go on a website and read up on it, or is there some sort of test I can do in my own kitchen to tell me how fermentable an extract is?
Yeah, certainly the internet is a good first source. You can read up on brands that have known good fermentability, Brees for one, and Alexander's, and what's another
Cooper's.
One? Cooper's, yeah. These are extracts, and certainly Muntins and others. Extracts made by real brewing companies. I mean, people that some extracts are designed to be thin with sugar. They're designed to be kit and kilo beers. Mm-hmm. And so those extracts are made to a low fermentability because they want an extract that's only going to finish out at say 1022 or 1025, with a high dextrin content, because it's planned that that's going to be thinned 50% with table sugar, which would ferment out very, very low. So the balance works out to about 1010, normal final gravity. But that's so if you're don't choose an extract that is part of a kit, like a canned kit or kit and kilo that's designed to be thin with sugar to make a certain style. Go for a straight pale malt extract or extra light extract, one that is intended to be used all malt and have a high degree of fermentability. Mm-hmm. Now, how do you determine that in the lab, or in the kitchen? Forced fermentation is about the only thing that occurs to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you brewers out there, feel free to call your kitchen a lab if you want. That's all right.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The wife may snicker, but who cares?
Yeah. She doesn't need to know.
Yeah. Does Alton Brown, get offended? No. So forced fermentation is a good way to find out the fermentability of an extract. Weigh out or volume calculate a precise amount of extract, dilute it up to say 1040, and add a packet of yeast to it and force that puppy to ferment as much as it can.
Mm-hmm. Warm fermentation, 80 degrees.
Yeah.
Use the same yeast in all of them. Just agitate, swirl, agitate.
And then take a gravity reading after a couple of days, and it should be down there, anywhere from 10.8 to 10.14, depending on the extract. Mm-hmm. Some extracts are going to be higher, 10.20, but a lot of the good extracts, like as we were saying, Muntins or Brees or Coopers, will be down there around 10.
So one of the tricks on this, though, is if you're going to do this kind of test, you don't want to do it necessarily at the high gravity that you're going to be brewing or even higher. You want to do it at a lower gravity so you know that the limits you're reaching is limits of fermentability of the extract, not limits of the fermentability of the yeast and yeast health issues and things like that, right? Or pitching rates. You want to make sure that what you're really determining is, okay, how much of that extract is completely fermentable and how much is unfermentable sugars.
Yeah.
And, that should give you a pretty good idea. Of course, it's going to vary if you use an ale yeast or a lager yeast, because lager yeast are able to consume some of the more complex sugars that ale yeast can't.
Yeah.
So, I'd say if you're making, Bock beer and it's going to be a lager, okay, go ahead, use lager yeast in your test. If it's going to be an ale that you're brewing, then definitely stick with ale yeast, and that gives you a pretty good idea of fermentability.
Right.
Okay. All right. Now, what else about selecting extracts? How about measuring your extract? When you're measuring, dried extract, liquid extract, you need to know also, how much sugar contribution you're going to get, or specific gravity contribution you're going to get from these things.
Well, yeah. We often talk about points per pound per gallon as a very convenient way of talking about potential extract. And so when I've done these sorts of experiments in the past, I'll generally put in a quarter pound of extract and mix it with water until I get 1 quart of wort. That comes out to a 1 pound per gallon, ratio. And so that gives me, first off, it gives me the OG. Is this liquid malt extract I'm working with, is it 36 points per pound per gallon, or is it only 35, or is it? Or is it more? Is it 38?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the important thing here is if you're using 10, 20 pounds of this stuff, that small difference is multiplied across that, and this may be part of the reason you're getting too high gravity, too low gravity. It's important to know that. And I want to reemphasize what you're saying there is what you're trying to measure is points per pound per gallon, and which is 1 pound of extract mixed up with water to make exactly 1 gallon. It's not a gallon of water and add a pound of extract. The final volume is exactly 1 gallon, and then mixed up thoroughly, and then measure it. And then you can do your fermentation trials with that. But John's talking using a quarter pound in a quart to make up a quart of liquid, and that gives you the same ratio. It's still points per pound per gallon.
Yeah, and I should mention that points per pound per gallon is equivalent to liter degrees per kilogram. It's just algebraically, flipped. If you stack the units up and algebraically, points per pound per gallon. While it trips off the tongue easily, should be more correctly stated as point gallons per pound, but just like liter degrees per kilogram. So apply your conversion factors, 8.3454 liter degrees per kilo, or times points per pound per gallon to get liter degrees per kilogram. Same difference.
All right. So, that's an important thing. And also, if you're working with, and one of the reasons that it's important to do these kinds of tests is that, different liquid extracts are, condensed down to different concentrations. They may all seem real syrupy and thick, but, a 1% or 2% difference in the concentration is going to make a big difference in how you mix these things up. Same thing goes with dry malt extract. If you're storing it in a high humidity area, it's going to pick up a little bit more water weight. Yeah. And when you measure that, you may end up throwing you off as well, and you'll end up with not enough gravity points.
Dry malt extract, is a little more consistent because if it's free flowing, it's going to be, and it's all malt, it's going to be pretty close to 42 points per pound per gallon. Mm-hmm. But if it's clumpy, now you've got more water in there and it's sticking together and forming chunks. Mm-hmm. You may be down to 40 or something like that. Mm. But again,
water's heavy.
Yeah. Weigh it out. Check your gravity at 1 gallon of wort, and and start your calculations from there.
Right.
And if you pick an easy number, say like a gravity of 1040 or 1050, you know that the yeast, and if you use say a whole packet or half a packet of yeast on 1 gallon of wort, it's going to have no problem fermenting that. We're not going to be overtaxing the yeast at all. Mm-hmm. So the only real variable is the extract itself, not the yeast health, not the vitality, and so on. Mm-hmm. We can drive that to its lowest, and really determine the fermentability of that particular wort.
Well, if you want to check the starting gravity of or the specific gravity contribution of an extract, you can even, if you're worried about the cost of using up a quarter pound of extract, then you can actually toss that into the boil and go from there. Be all right.
Yeah, that's true.
Not a problem. Of course, once you ferment it out, then that's a different story. But if you haven't fermented it, you can always toss it in the boil, sanitize it, and add to whatever beer you're making that day. So it won't go to waste. All right, well, let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll wrap things up. Back after this.
Brew right. Brew smart.
Brew Strong.
This is Brew Strong.
Cutting-edge equipment from Blickman Engineering is designed by brewers to make your brew day shorter, more enjoyable, and to give you a sense of pride in your equipment. At Blickman, they know what makes brewing a pain and build gear that makes it fun. Like the intuitive beer gun, a completely different approach to filling bottles. The Therminator Wort Chiller, a new take on a plate chiller that's sized for flow, performance, and the high groundwater temps homebrewers face every day. The Brewmometer, a brilliant weldless thermometer design with brewing parameters right on the dial. The Autosparge, ultimate simplicity for preventing an overflow or running your mash tun dry. And much more, like the modular top-tier brewing stand, conical fermenters, and their Boilermaker brew pots. With more cutting-edge equipment coming soon, keep up with the latest from Blickman at blickmanengineering.com and stay on the cutting edge.
Nico, listen, our lawyers said that we had to do this for 1 hour, and after this, we don't have to talk to each other for 3 more months to the next meeting.
Kids. Come on, let's get out of here.
I'm supposed to have more lines. I'm the professional. Hey, it's Sully.
And I'm Nico.
And we opened the 21st Amendment 10 years ago at 563 2nd Street in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park, to make great beer and have a great time doing it.
That's right, because to us, the 21st Amendment is more than just the right to make beer. It's the right to experiment, to be innovative, and just do things differently. And so now, we're putting our craft beer in cans.
That's right, cans. You can find our world-famous Hell or High Watermelon Wheat Beer at Brew for Your Die IPA in the Northeast, Northwest, parts of the Midwest, and Alaska, in cans and on draft. So next time you're at your local neighborhood pub or good beer store, be sure to ask for 21st Amendment in cans.
Because everyone likes it in the can.
Tasty crack cans.
Tasty crack can.
Williams Brewing is your online resource for prompt delivery of quality home brewing supplies. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and freshest ingredients and the best customer service in the business. Cut hours off your brewing sessions by using one of our 11 varieties of famous Williams malt extract. Our Williams Belgian Pale Extract is mashed with pure Belgian 2-row malt and a small percentage of Belgian wheat malt for an authentic Belgian character you just can't get from other extracts. Or check out our unique fermenters, 2.5-gallon kegs, paintball tank-based draft beer equipment, bottling aids, and much more. We even have our own line of precision hydrometers. Go to WilliamsBrewing.com to browse our vast selection. That's WilliamsBrewing.com. Orders placed by 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time ship the same day. Brewing is easy. The Williams way.
Hey, what are you doing, man?
Writing a review of WLP 400.
What? You're reviewing yeast?
Yeah. White Labs has home brewer reviews of all their strains. Are you new to these interwebs? Check it out.
That's awesome.
White Labs, your source for great yeast, invites all brewers to visit whitelabs.com to read and write your own reviews of all their yeast strains. Get real-world tips and tricks from other brewers who have made the most of their vials and post your own experiences. It's another way White Labs brings you closer to the best yeast on the planet.
And send. There you go.
You misspelled flocculate, dude.
What?
White Labs. It's all in the vial. Organic ingredients. Fresh, clean, good for you, good for the planet. Seven Bridges has the best selection of organic ingredients, including over 27 varieties of organic hops at breworganic.com. Join their mailing list for special deals and regular updates. They've been brewing organic and serving organic brewers for 13 years. They can help you brew great organic beer. And Seven Bridges is the proud host of the 4th Annual National Organic Brewing Challenge, the only BJCP-sanctioned nationwide brewing competition just for organic beers. Take the challenge this fall for a chance to win great prizes, including stainless steel brew kettles and organic brewing ingredients. This year, the challenge will be judged in 2 locations: on the East Coast at Capital City Brewing in Arlington, Virginia, and on the West Coast at Gordon Biersch in San Jose, California. For complete details, visit breworganic.com/competition. Seven Bridges is cooperatively owned in awesome Santa Cruz, California. Everyone there is dedicated to great beer and people-friendly business practices. They offer environmentally friendly, free trade, and fair wage brewing products whenever possible. Seven Bridges, breworganic.com.
This is www.thebrewingnetwork.com.
Sit down next to it, grab yourself a paper towel, and watch those yeast have sex.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Like the Lance Armstrong of the beer world. Except for that nut thing.
This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're wrapping up our first in the series of high-gravity brewing shows. Yep. And we've talked about, why fermentability is important, and how to determine the fermentability of the extract you have, and, also, why you want to pick a pale extract, perhaps over a darker flavored extract or something like that.
Yeah. I was going to say, let's kind of summarize, what 3 ways that you can brew a high gravity wort. One is by adding simple sugars. Mm-hmm. Another is by adding malt extract to your all grain wort. Mm-hmm. And the third is by driving the fermentability of the mash up with lower mash temperatures. 145 degrees Fahrenheit or 50 degrees centigrade.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, those are good tips. 60
degrees centigrade. Yeah.
Well, and what we should do is on our next show in this series, we'll be getting into how you prepare a mash for a high gravity beer, how you use your extract to make a high gravity wort for your high gravity beer.
Yeah.
All right. And if you're listening live, stay tuned. That one's coming up right away, and if you're on the archives, it's going to be about 2 weeks. Justin, we got any questions from the chat?
Yeah, one good question was a private message to me here. Listener wants to know, how do I know what fermentability to expect from a given wort?
Right. So you've made your wort. You've added all these other specialty grains in. Perhaps what the fermentability is of your extract, but now you've added other sugars in there with specialty grains. You've boiled it. You've changed the volume. You've probably melanoid formation, yada yada. Or you've done a mash and you only have your idea of what it's supposed to ferment to. How do you check to see, now that you've got your wort, how do you know how much a high gravity beer should attenuate?
Yeah. Well, one aspect we touched on earlier, and that is a forced fermentation. To make up that wort and dry, and take a sample of it and pitch a whole bunch of yeast to it, and do it warm, 75, 80 degrees, and you will get that final attenuation within a day or two. The other way is you can kind of estimate it. A couple rules of thumb. Most all grain worts are 75 to 80% fermentable, and so you can say that if I'm going to start out with say a 1080 beer, and I'm going to say that beer is 75% of fermentable. Well, 75% of 80 is 60, so that you subtract 60 points, and that 1080 at 75% fermentability would finish out about 1020. If you add simple sugars to that, such as table sugar, sucrose, or dextrose, which is glucose, same thing, corn sugar, that's 100% fermentable. And, so you can, taking into account any water weight, you would say that, would go to, well, actually, come to think of it, I don't remember what the final gravity of table sugar works out to be. Because I think it actually ends up less than like 99.7. Do you remember? I don't remember.
Yeah, once the alcohol's in there, sure.
Yeah, I think it goes down a couple points below zero. Right. But, call it zero for practical purposes. So, ratio that out. You've got, 2 pounds of sugar and, 8 pounds of malt or malt-based sugars that are going to ferment down, let's say 8 pounds going to 1020 and 2 pounds going to zero, average it out. And that's your estimated final gravity.
Right. And, it's a good way to estimate. And, the surest way is to, when you're pulling off your wort.
Yeah, what are you pulling off?
Yeah, okay. Oh, my wort, yeah.
You're pulling off your wort.
Snap off a fresh piece of wort.
Snap yourself off a fresh piece of that wort.
Yeah.
Snap yourself off a piece into another container, and chill that down. Pitch the same yeast you're using for your batch, and ferment it warm. You can go 80, 85 degrees. Don't exceed 85 degrees, and shake it every so often, and you should be able to see the maximum attenuation possible. Now, keep in mind, with a normal fermentation on a high gravity beer, you tend to experience slightly less attenuation than the maximum possible. But that should give you an idea, and you want to come close to that. But if you're short a couple of points on a 1.100 beer, not a big deal. You've done marvelously on your attenuation. We'll get into fermentation in a show coming up in this series. But that's it for this show. We hope you stick around for all the rest of this high gravity series. I think it's a great subject, really near and dear to a lot of homebrewers' hearts, because I love making those wild, out there, big special beers. And if you don't know how to do high gravity brewing, they just won't turn out well.
Yep.
I'll tell you one thing that does turn out well is our great sponsor, Blickman Engineering. Check it out, blickmanengineering.com. Check out the Brewing Network store. I want you to buy a Brew Strong shirt. You got plenty of time before the conference. I want you to go buy one, take it to the conference, show up at the conference, and John will be carrying around a silver pen, and he'll mark those. He'll sign all those shirts for you.
Yeah.
So, and I will too. That's fine. But
Palmer signs thongs also. He likes thongs.
He likes the thongs. So tear it up and wear it as a thong. It'll be perfect. But check that out in the store. There's a lot of other good stuff in there. If you don't like the Brew Strong shirts, get yourself a Hop Grenade shirt. Those are cool too. And we got books. We got all sorts of goodies. You can actually sign up for BYO Magazine, Zymergy, all that, and a portion goes to the Brewing Network. Helps keep this programming alive. So, crack the wallet and find something good on there and bring it with you to NHC. And Palmer and I will gladly thumb through it and tear out a page and take it home or something. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this show and the many more coming up after it. And if you get a chance, make sure you say hi. We'll also be at Northern Brewer. And,
on the Wednesday. Yeah.
On the Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'm going to be on there on the Tuesday, too. And then BNFI. All right. Until then, Brew Strong.
Brew Strong, everybody.